In this video, I'm going to go over how we automate the process of creating knowledge bases for our voice agents. If you've been building voice agents or if you're building one for your own company, you know that it can be really challenging to get them to say the right thing. And it can actually be quite time consuming to take a bunch of raw data and make a bunch of questions and answers out of it. Here's how you automate the entire thing with absolutely zero code. We create a Pinecone assistant, we upload a bunch of files, ask it the question that we need, then delete the assistant, where we're giving it 50 examples of questions and also 50 examples of how to respond. What tone should it use? What type of language? Who are your whipped creams prepared by?
We do not currently offer vegan options. If you're looking for something specific, please let me know.
So in our use case, this is super powerful because it takes a bunch of steps away and also ensures, because Pinecone is literally a vector database company, they're really good at what they do when accuracy matters. If you're new around here, my name's Taha. I've been building voice agents for the last year, chatbots for the last 2 years, and on this channel, we help people with automations, business owners, and anybody who can benefit from AI. Now, I consider this automation to be successful if I can add a file within a Google Drive folder, which we're using as a trigger. Right here, you'll see right now it's empty. And then at the end of it, I need two things. I need the actual file to be uploaded to my voice agent, as well as a list of 50 questions and answers that have been pre-processed for me so that I'm helping my voice agent. It doesn't have to come up with all of these answers all on the spot. They're already pre-programmed or pre-prepared for it. It is probably one of the more technical videos that I have made, but there's absolutely zero code. I've tried my best, and let's just dive right in. Now, just to be sure that we're all on the same page, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a brief overview of the entire system to make sure this is something that you're actually looking for. And then I'll go step by step into each individual module, what it does, troubles I had with it, and hiccups that you might encounter. If I zoom in here, for context, in this case, I'm actually using Vapi as the voice agent. This would work with any voice agent, whether it's Vapi, Bland, Retail, Synthflow, etc. Now, the trigger right here is a watch files in Google folder, which is just whenever a new file comes in, trigger this. We're looking for all of the files within that folder, because what this does is that this will actually trigger to retrieve all of the existing files, download all of those files. We're then converting each of those files individually using Cloud Convert into a PDF to make sure that they're homogeneous. After that, we're actually merging all of these files into a singular PDF. Once we have our file, we're actually creating a Pinecone assistant, which I think I've made a video actually about before. And this is what's actually creating the list of 50 questions and answers. That list, by the way, of 50 is arbitrary. It could be 75, could be 100, could be 2. After that, we're uploading the documents that we just merged together into Pinecone, creating that Q&A, creating a document to actually save those answers, downloading the document, deleting the document that we just downloaded, erasing the Pinecone assistant since we don't need it anymore. And then right here is when we're actually retrieving the AI agent, or in this case, Vapi. We're retrieving it. Now there's two use cases here. If the agent already has a knowledge base, it'll go on the upper deck or the upper scenario. We're basically retrieving all of the file IDs, deleting the current files, and then replacing them with the two files that we have, right? Because we have the 50 questions and answers, and we have the actual raw file, or the merged PDF. If there's no knowledge base at all we're doing is uploading the 50 files, uploading the raw PDF, and then attaching said files to the assistant. That's an overarching view. Now, don't worry about having to rebuild this yourself. This entire workflow is going to be in the link in the description. Just click on it. You will be able to find it. All right, let's dive deep. On the first side of things, I have my Google Drive folder, which serves as the trigger in this case. If I go into Google Drive, right now you'll see there's zero content at all. What I'm going to do, just to sort of showcase this, I found this random PDF right here for a sample food business plan. All I'm going to do, I'll drag it in here. I've now got it. Now, as I'm explaining it, I don't believe I have a Vapi assistant. I'm also going to go ahead and create a Vapi assistant because this is what you would do before actually starting this automation. Create an assistant. We'll call it food business. And the rest of it, you can leave exactly as is, doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is I'm going to go ahead and grab this URL right here. Now what this is this is the assistant ID. And the reason why I'm grabbing it is because if I go, I'm going to sort of fast forward a little bit on my scenario, and you're going to find a tool here, or a set of variables. If you're rebuilding this yourself, you're going to do this. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to replace my assistant ID with the assistant ID that I just copied from the URL. You're also going to want to change your API key for this. So if you don't know where to find your API key, go into Vapi, go under content, and then it's going to say API keys, and you'll find it right there. Once you've actually changed this assistant ID, and this is the only thing you'd have to do if you're selling this to other people, or if you have sort of multiple voice agents. The only thing you need to really change to make this work is duplicating the scenario and actually changing the assistant ID, because that's what indicates what assistant am I trying to update right now. Now that we have our assistant and we have our file storage, and this is what, if you're building for other people, this is what you actually share with them. And you tell them, hey, look, whatever data you want to put in here, just dump it in here. Now that we have our trigger, which triggers every time that a new file is uploaded, the first thing that we're doing is actually searching for files. In this case, we're searching for files, all of them, that are within this actual folder. The reason why we're doing this, by the way, is you can have one file, you can also have 20 files, but we want to download every single one, every single time, because in the event that the use case or the idea behind this is that if you delete something, let's say you had 5 files in there, and then you removed one and added another one, which are completely separate, well, you want the knowledge base to take into consideration the fact that something was removed. You're not always just adding stuff to a knowledge base, you might also remove things. Which is why every single time that this runs, and it's not like you're running it every day, which is why it's so sort of meaty, but every time that it runs, it takes the entire knowledge base into account when generating that Q&A and knowledge base. In this limit right here, you can set it to whatever you would like. After that, we're actually downloading every single file. We're using an array aggregator just to get all the data into one singular array. And then, if you're new to Make, by the way, Make is an automation tool. I mean, if you're watching the video this far, I'm assuming you're already pretty familiar. But if you haven't used aggregators and iterators within Make before, here's a super simple explanation of them. An array aggregator is something that takes a bunch of similar values and puts them into a single collection. An iterator does the opposite, where it'll take a collection and then separate them into a bunch of separate values. Now, we're aggregating all of the values from the Google Drive so that we can do the following step. That being, we want to convert each of these files to a specific format. So people can upload text, they can upload JPEGs, they can upload add docx documents. But we want every single file here to be a PDF. So we're actually using Cloud Convert on this iterator to tell it, hey, look, take every single entry from this Google Drive folder and turn it into a PDF. So if you log in here, I think Cloud Convert has like 10 free converts a day, but I think I bought 500 for like 10 bucks. So all you gotta do, if you don't have Cloud Convert, go to cloudconvert.com. And it'll take you right to it. You've probably already used this, even like unknowingly, whenever you wanted to change like a PDF to a PNG or vice versa, or like a Word document to something else. But yeah, they actually have an API which we're using in this case. And what we basically told it is, hey, look, take this data. File name is kind of irrelevant, doesn't really matter. I don't know the input format. Output, always be a PDF. The file name, you can name it whatever you'd like. Just make sure that it has the .pdf. And also super important, make sure that you actually download the PDF when it comes back. So now, just so make sure we're all on the same page, at this point, we've now downloaded a bunch of different PDFs. We could have one PDF, we could have 10 of them. Well, at that point, what we need to do in order to actually upload it and create a knowledge base out of it is combine all of them. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to use another array aggregator to take a bunch of individual fields and actually combine them into a singular array. So you take this array aggregator, you take this source module as the previous array aggregator, and then you take, basically, look, I want you to loop, or I want you to give me all the data that's been passed so far into a singular collection or an array. Then we're using a different tool. We're going to sort of jump around with tools here. This one is called pdf.co. Now, you can do this also with Cloud Convert, but it was giving me a lot of trouble. So in the effort of simplicity and keeping this as low code as possible, PDF.co makes this super simple. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's basically just a PDF app. You can go to PDF.co and it will take you here. But in our use case, we're only using it to take a bunch of different PDFs that we got from Cloud Convert and merge them into a singular PDF. So if I click on Cloud Convert or PDF.co, you'll see here the input type upload files. The files that I'm using is the array of files that we took from Cloud Convert, which is right here. File name you can leave as is. Execution mode, I left it as async for large docs. If you have smaller documentation, you can also put this as sync, but just to cover all of our bases, just leave it for async for large docs. And also we have the following module to make sure that we're not moving forward until this job has actually been complete. And then export type, make sure that you've put this as a download file. Then if you go look at the one that's right beside it, what this one does is this is very similar to the merge a PDF. All we're doing now is we're checking, did the merge process finish before moving on? So if I move myself out of the way, and then all we're doing is we're taking the ID of the previous module and putting it in here, and you can leave this as it is. Export type is download a file. This saved me so much headache because sometimes it would move on to the next thing, and I wasn't sure why it wasn't sort of compiling correctly. That turned out that the PDF hadn't finished merging. So it makes it also super easy for troubleshooting and debugging. Then once you've done this, you can now move on to the Pinecone side of things. So we're completely done with PDFs. So far, we took our entire list of Google Drive folders or Google Drive files, and we've now created a gigantic merge PDF of all of those files. All right, let's move on from PDF.co. The next portion of this is going to be something that I've actually used in the previous video called Pinecone. If you're unfamiliar, Pinecone is actually, well, originally it was used for vector databases, which is just a really easy way or the best way for LLMs to categorize data. If you're unfamiliar, simply go to pinecone.io and you'll see what they do. But the reason why we're interested in them for this video is because they recently launched something called Pinecone Assistance. Now, why does that matter to us? Well, before Pinecone Assistance, and I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but for this use case, it's the simplest one that I found. Before this, what you had to do to actually convert a bunch of data into something that's easily understood by an LLM is you have to vectorize it and or create an embedding. Now, that added a few extra steps. Pinecone just released this assistant, which means that we can give it the raw PDFs and it will handle all the system prompting, it'll handle all the embeddings, it'll take care of all of that for you. All you gotta do, create your assistant, upload your files, and we're done. So, as you're looking here for the actual documentation, it's basically a service that allows you to upload documents, ask questions, and receive responses that refer to your document. So in our use case, this is super powerful because it takes a bunch of steps away and also ensures, because Pinecone is literally a vector database company, they're really good at what they do when accuracy matters. Other LLMs like ChatGPT or Claude 3.5, while good, have a tendency to hallucinate. I've noticed that Pinecone has basically zero hallucination. Like if it doesn't find something from your documents, it will say, I don't know. So if you want to learn more about Pinecone, you literally just go to pinecone.io and all of the documentation is right there. So going back to our make automation, the first thing that we need to do is to actually create the Pinecone assistant. Super simple. All we're doing is an HTTP request to Pinecone. If you look into the docs, you'll see create an assistant, and here that you can create it. We're just doing this within make.com. And in here, you need a couple of things. First one, well, basically the only thing, is your API key. If you don't know where to find it, all you gotta do is go to pinecone.io, sign up for a free account. I think you can have 5 free assistants at any one time. And then if you go to API keys, you'll be able to see it right here. Copy this, put it into this value right here. You scroll down. The only thing you need to set up apart from the API key, and you can leave this exactly as is the name of your assistant, the actual whether you want to stream or not. We have it as false for the time being, and what model you want to use. Now what model, meaning what's the backend engine for like when it actually outputs data. In this case, we're using GPT-4o, and I think the only other model that's available is Claude 3.5, but we haven't seen much of a difference between both of them. Okay. Once you've gone ahead and created your assistant using Pinecone, the next step is just a sleep module. This one is just a delay for 10 seconds. The reason why it's here is because sometimes we found out, because the module right after this is actually using that assistant, but because they were so sort of quick back to back, sometimes it wouldn't update in time, which gave us trouble. So we just put a sleep for 10 seconds to make sure that that doesn't happen. The next portion when it comes to Pinecone is we now have our assistant. Now let's actually upload data to it. In this case, I've made a video about this before, but to actually upload files to an assistant, I'm referring to the documentation again. All you gotta do is either you can look here, or what we're doing is the only thing that you really need to change, assuming that you've downloaded this, is whenever you're creating your Pinecone assistant, you're going to receive a response that actually includes the name of the assistant. So within the documentation, you'll notice it says you actually have to put the name of the actual assistant right here. We can generate that dynamically because we just created it. So it'll be within Make's dynamic variables here. In this case, it'll be this one, name. We're using post because we're actually sending data over. Once again, only really the thing you need, the API key. Bit of a different header this time. Usually, I mean, at least I'm used to using stuff like application/JSON, but in this case, you're using multipart/form-data. And we're using, I think we're only uploading one file. Yeah. So we're only uploading one file. In this case, field type is going to be file because we're actually uploading data itself, not like a URL. Or text in this case. The key, we've just left it as file. Now here's super important. The file that I want to upload is the actual file that we just merged. Now here's something that we've noticed while building these. The one where we merge PDF gives us a lot of trouble to actually work correctly. So to avoid that, what we're using is don't use the merge.pdf or merge PDF module. We use the job check module. So within data, just check number 54, which is this one. And you'll see data right here. And then name of that data, in which case it is this one. And that's pretty much it. You don't have to parse the response at all. Press OK. And for the time being, we're almost done with Pinecone. We've now uploaded our files to Pinecone. Another thing that we learned while building this, and if you're building this from scratch, it can be quite frustrating. Whenever you upload files to Pinecone, you need to give it time to actually process the files that you just uploaded. So all of the PDFs, keep in mind, this can be megabytes and megabytes of data. So in our case, we've noticed that if you just give a delay of 30 seconds between when you actually upload the files and when you try to request information from them or from Pinecone, having a delay changes the game because it allows it to actually process. Otherwise, it's not going to return an error, but it will basically pretend as if there's no data here. And you're going to try to query it and it'll say, I have no idea. I don't know any of this. Which is good because it proves that it doesn't hallucinate, but we obviously need our answers. So after our 30-second delay, next part is one of the coolest ones. And this is one where you can have you've got a lot of liberty as to what you want to do with it. So in this case, we're using a post request once again with the assistant's name. And then this time, we're actually chatting with the assistant because keep in mind, we basically just created an assistant and given it a bunch of files. If I go back to our trusty docs and then you scroll all the way down to chat with an assistant, you can see that you can basically go back and forth with this assistant. In this case, same thing, API key, content type application/JSON, body type is raw. And what you're looking at right here is a prompt. It's a fairly straightforward prompt. All it says is that you're an assistant tasked with creating a structured knowledge base for an AI caller using information from the company's website, training manuals, and other provided resources. Feel free to keep reading this, but basically, we're telling it never make up information that you're not aware of. Make me a set of 50 questions and answers in this specific format, and then just return these. And if there's questions that you ask that you don't know the answer to, just answer with something along the lines of, I'm not sure, but I can get somebody to come back to you on that. Something along those lines. That's what this prompt says. Feel free to tweak it to your specific liking, but just to get started off with, this is more than fine. So once we have that, we now have our prompt, and this will actually chat with the Pinecone assistant so that it can, give us back the information that we need. And we're done for the time being, almost, with Pinecone. We're not doing any more chats with it. We have our list of 50 questions and answers. By the way, in case it wasn't clear, the reason why we're doing the 50 questions and answers in this case is because PDF files usually are not meant to be spoken on the phone. Usually they're meant for employees or assistants about documents of the company. But to make our assistant's job easier, or to really predict how assistant is going to respond to a specific question, if you've heard of few-shot prompting, it's basically a version of that, where we're giving it 50 examples of questions and also 50 examples of how to respond. What tone should it use? What type of language? How you want your assistant to talk. Then, and this is on top of the raw data. So now, let's say somebody asked a question that wasn't within the set of 50 questions. Well, at least I've got 50 examples of how to answer other questions. So when I do answer based on this PDF file, even if it's just raw data, I'm much more likely to start responding similarly to how I would have if that question was included within the set of 50. Once we have our list of 50 questions and answers, we're going to create a Google Doc. By the way, if you don't know how to create one, all you gotta do is just open a new module, type in Google Doc. Super straightforward. Connect your document, like just sign with your Google account. Super straightforward. And then choose the scenario or choose the module that says create a document. In this case, all we're doing is creating it. And by the way, I chose the name timestamp just because it's easier. We're not going to use this document very much, so the name doesn't really matter. Content is what we received back from the Pinecone assistant, and you can choose wherever you want to leave this. In this case, I would actually have to change this to, I believe it's content. There we go. Press OK. And then what I want to do is download said document. The way we download it, if you click on here, you should see the document ID from the previous module. Press OK. Now we have our document downloaded. We don't really need it. And unless you want to start collecting a bunch of Google Docs of knowledge bases, you can delete it as well. Same thing, document ID, press this one, that'll take care of that. So we're only creating it for the time that we need it, and then we're getting rid of it. And actually, we're also getting rid of the Pinecone assistant because, I mean, keep in mind, there's only 5 on the free tier, and unless you're selling this to multiple people, if you're just creating this for yourself, you don't really need more than that. So we create the Pinecone assistant, we upload a bunch of files, ask it the question that we need, then delete the assistant. In case you're wondering how to do that, I go back to our documents, you'll see delete an assistant, same thing, API key, assistant name, and it's gone. In this case, we did the exact same thing. Method is now delete because we're removing it. And that's pretty much it on the Pinecone side of things. We're now completely done with anything that isn't directly related to the voice agent. We have our knowledge base, we have our set of 50 Q&As. The first thing that we need to do to actually update this voice agent now is retrieve or find out, hey look, well, what's currently going on with our voice agent, which is what this node is for. By the way, if I haven't mentioned it earlier, but this is an HTTP module within make.com. So if you're unfamiliar, just go to HTTP. There's this one, make a request right here, and you'll be exactly where I'm at. Let's get rid of that. So we need to retrieve the assistant from Vapi. In this case, super simple. If you go into Vapi's documentation, you'll actually see how simple it is. We need to get an assistant. Vapi, by the way, has a super cool thing where you can actually ask about stuff. So if you press in here, you say, how do I retrieve an assistant through API? I believe Bland also has something very similar to this. These are a lifesaver, especially when things are getting frustrated, or if this is giving you trouble, I'd suggest just hopping on Ambio Discords, and most likely the trouble that you're facing, somebody else has already faced before. Now that we have our assistant, we're using a get method to retrieve all this information. The only thing we really need is the API key, which we've set up as a variable right here. So all I've got to do is, let's say this wasn't here, I can just press on it. And now when I go to duplicate this, I don't have to put my API key a bunch of places. I'll put it once and it'll auto-populate here. Everything else you can leave exactly the same. Now, once we've retrieved data from our voice assistant, there's going to be one of two options. Those two options are either this assistant already has a knowledge base. So if you click into Vapi, you'll see something right here. If an assistant has a knowledge base, you'll see it right here. In this case, we don't have one. So since we don't have one, it's actually going to go down the path that's below. In this case, we're doing two things. First one is uploading the set of 50 questions, which is just another post request to Vapi. Now, since we don't have a knowledge base for this specific agent, it's going to go down the path that's right here. The difference between these two, this one is if the knowledge base does exist, and this one is if it doesn't. So we're doing two things for this one. First one is actually uploading 50 questions. So the set of 50, the Q&A, we're uploading that first. The reason, by the way, why it's separated is because for the time being, at least for Vapi, you cannot upload more than one file at a time. So since we're always going to have two files, right? One of them is going to be the 50 Q&As, and the other one's going to be the merged PDF. So we had to separate those into two. They're very, very similar in this case, and you'll see right here it's empty. All I've got to do to actually sort of make this active is use my API or my assistance ID variable. Everything else you can leave the same. Method is post, authorization, stuff that we've seen before. And now the most important part is make sure that the body type is multi-part / form data. Field type is file, key is file, and the file that we're using is Google Docs. Just click on this. Everything else you can leave the same. You can parse the response if you'd like. Press OK. Duplicate this one in here. Super similar, but instead of being a... Actually, wait a second. Let me take that back. I don't actually need to put this assistant ID here because we're just uploading the file. The way Vapi works is you upload files without the assistant's IDs, and then you combine them or you assign a file to a specific assistant. So you don't need to put the assistant ID here. Then in here, we're putting the exact same thing. The only difference is instead of uploading a Google Doc, we're uploading this pdf.co file. Now, we've had trouble actually connecting the file here. So what you want to do, instead of using the merge one, use the one that's called a job check, which is in our case is number 54. If I scroll all the way down, you'll see data right here and name this one, which is right here. After that, you press OK. And now the final thing that you have to do for this branch is actually attaching the file to the assistant. So now we have two files and we have an assistant. How do we connect them? Fairly straightforward. We're actually going to update an existing assistant with the files. So in this case, we're going to use a different method. Same thing as whenever we're getting the assistant. Instead of using a GET request, we're using a patch request or update request. Tomato, tomato. Same thing as before. API key, body type is going to be raw, content type is going to be JSON, and the request content in here. And this is the minimum that I could upload without Vapi giving me trouble for it. The main thing here to remember is all of this stuff, like the model, the prompt, everything else is from the assistant. So whenever we retrieve the assistant, it gives us all this data. The stuff that we're inputting that's new is you'll see right at the bottom here where it says knowledge base. There's going to be a thing here that says file IDs. These are the file IDs that we just uploaded right here. So you see 2657, 2657. So we are now assigning this specific assistant with these two file IDs. And that's how you upload new knowledge bases to a Vapi assistant without ever going into Vapi yourself. But you might have noticed, in most cases, knowledge bases will change. If you're selling this to other people, your clients will have things that they want to remove or add, things like that. Well, how do you do that at scale without just constantly going back and forth between Vapi? Well, in the event that the knowledge base does exist, it's actually going on the high road, let's call it. In this case, we're using an array aggregator. What this does, this actually retrieves or creates an array of all of the file IDs. And then it iterates. Remember the iterator from before? Well, we're now iterating through each file ID. And we're using a delete method within make or within Vapi to remove every single file from, or to delete all those files. What you'll notice here, and this is the array from, I believe this is number 64. So it's from the iterator. So we're now using a delete method within Vapi. If you want more information, the doc is always right here. And we're using this method right here. So now we have now deleted this value. And the reason why we're iterating it is because if you only have one knowledge base, you wouldn't need an iterator. But let's say you have two knowledge bases because you use this system and you've already used it once. You're going to want to remove all of the knowledge bases to start from fresh. So once we removed every single file associated with this AI agent, because keep in mind, this file here is not going to be related to the entire Vapi account. It's only going to be related to the knowledge bases or to the file IDs within this specific agent. We're now using another aggregator to get a list of all the stuff that we have. The reason, by the way, why we do this is just to stop it so that it only iterates on this. I don't want to continue iterating on this entire line. Afterwards, we're removing every single file from the assistant. So in this case, you'll notice here, Vapi has this interesting way of working where you can't remove the files directly. So what we had to do is we're using an update file again, very similarly to what we did below. But the only difference here is we're not changing anything. But you'll see here the provider and knowledge base, the file IDs are empty. Because what happens when you delete the Vapi files, if it's assigned to an assistant, we've tested this, it still responds with that knowledge base. Meaning I could have deleted the file, but the assistant will still have that knowledge base. So, and will still be able to answer based on those files that are supposed to be deleted. So to make sure that we're covering all our bases, we're updating the assistant, and the only thing we're updating is that there's zero knowledge base. So technically, you could also just do this without deleting the files, but then you just have a pile of files just piling up in your Vapi account. Regardless, this is purely to remove the file IDs. Next portion is we have now sort of came full circle. We're doing the exact same thing we did earlier, which is uploading 50 questions. And then we're, same thing, Google Doc. We're also doing the same thing right here, which is for the pdf.co. And lastly, we are updating our assistant using the patch method again and this time, you'll notice if you scroll down, the field is file ID. You're also going to want the 50 questions. If I go here, just to show you, that, and then we put file ID. Press OK. And there you have it. That is how you actually update your knowledge base using Google Drive automatically. Let's run it once. So what I'm going to do is I have this sample food business plan. I'm actually going to make a copy of it. And then, just to make sure it's in the right place, let me go to my Vapi assistant. You'll see here, I'll use GPT-4o Mini. I'll tell it to have a conversation. I'll do publish, and you'll see here there's 0. Alright, so I've got my Vapi assistant right here. I made a new one just because the other one, Vapi, was giving me a bit of trouble. But basically, I just make sure that I've got the right assistant ID. If I refresh this, you'll see here that there's 0 knowledge bases, and my only prompt here is just have a conversation. Now, once I know that I have my assistant ID, all I've got to do is go all the way here, go to set multiple variables, to make sure that this is the same. Perfect. If I scroll back out, what you'll notice here is, let me get rid of this. I'm going to duplicate this sample food business plan, and then I'm actually going to see if it can run it based on these 2 files. I've now made a copy. If I do run, you can now see it's running. They can take a while, but it's basically downloading these 2 files. The longest portion of this is going to be Cloud Convert, but I'll let it do its thing. Now, as you can see, it went through. This is totally normal. If you go, all I'm gonna do is refresh that. Now I have 2 files. So what I'm gonna do actually, I'm gonna take this assistant demo link, and I'm going to send it to myself to see if it actually works. Hi.
Hello. How can I assist you today?
What are your whipped creams? Who are your whipped creams prepared by?
Our whipped creams are made with high-quality ingredients to ensure a rich and creamy texture. They are prepared using a blend of dairy and other ingredients, but we do not currently offer vegan options. If you're looking for something specific, please let me know.
Who are they produced by?
The whipped cream toppings are produced by Fancy's Foods, specifically under the brand name Whipped Dream.
Got it. Interesting. And how much of the national brand, or what's the percentage of the national brand that is sold in frozen tub form?
Approximately 65% of the national brand prepared whipped topping is sold in frozen tub form.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you. And there you go. We didn't touch a single thing. The only prompt in here was have a conversation. Everything else was actually done automatically through a Google Drive. I hope that was valuable. Thank you for watching. Questions, concerns, let me know. And let me know what else you guys want me to make a video on, because I've been getting back into content and it's been super fun, and I'm glad to finally be sharing what we've been working on all these months. Alright, I hope that was valuable. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to learn more about how to actually build these voice agents, or if you're looking for myself and Mark to actually build you a voice agent for your company or for your agency, you can always go to promptadvisors.com/inbound-agent and you'll see me there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. If you don't know who I am, my name is Taha El Akhsi, and I've been building voice agents for the last year now. Been building chatbots for the last 2 years, and we've done so many different industries, some of which are actually on screen. We've done everything from education to construction, dentistry, real estate, lawyers, insurance brokers, etc. Mostly in service-based businesses or local businesses. If you want to learn more about how we work, the types of companies we work with, or if you want us to build us your own voice agents, then you can always just go to promptadvisors.com/inbound-agent. That's probably the best way to reach us. Thank you for watching.